Welcome to the Prophecy Club, where we study and research Bible prophecy. Our topic tonight is Shackles of the New World Order. We look around and we see the world government talked about in Daniel 7:23 and Revelation 13:1 coming fast upon us. Well, what are they doing behind the scenes in terms of government to bring all of this to pass? Well, our speaker tonight is uniquely qualified to talk about that and a whole lot of other things. He is a former biomedical researcher, psychological associate, and dental surgeon. He is currently studying forensic dentistry to complement his work in investigative journalism. For the past 4 years, he has been publishing a journal called the Encounter Chronicles, and frankly, I'm impressed with it, very impressed with it. And he is done so many things I couldn't begin to even read them here, and he's a member of so many different associations such as the Federation of American Scientists, and the list goes on. And his particular journal has been exposing the role of the national security establishment in the creation of the New World Order in response to the knowledge of an impending global catastrophe, which of course we prophecy students already know and understand is in fact coming. So will you help me welcome Dr. Rod Lewis.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Prophecy Club for having me in this tour. This week's been very exciting for me. This is my very first formal speaking tour, and I really appreciate the good folks of South Bend to come out and attend this presentation and to listen to what I have to say, because the information that I'm going to give you today, this evening, you probably have heard bits and pieces, but you haven't been able to integrate it all together to make sort of a composite. It looks like a lot of different fragmented things. You hear about biological disasters and nuclear war, the possibility of nuclear war. You hear about the Illuminati, the secret societies, the national security establishment. And what I'm going to try to do tonight is to bring all this together so that you can go home and you have a concept of what our national security establishment, otherwise known as the CIA, the NSA, the Office of Naval Intelligence, what all of these groups, the secret government, already knows. First of all, I'd just like to elaborate a little bit, because Stan did go through some of my credentials and what I'm doing right now. I've been writing for about 4 years, writing and investigating and researching, and I had been in clinical dentistry, what they call a wet finger dentist, and so I got very interested in investigative journalism, so I turned in my dental mirror for a spyglass, you might say. And I found out a lot of very interesting things. First of all, I want to show you this transparency. I saw this one time, I believe it was on the internet, and I was very impressed with it because I think it's very representative and gives you a good conceptual understanding of what the New World Order is about. And it has the pyramid here that we have all come to recognize and disdain, and the all-seeing eye of Horus or Lucifer in the globe. And this being superimposed over the globe indicates that we will one day be dominated by this figure here, which I believe is, I guess you could say, my interpretation of the image of the beast. In addition to that, I believe that the shackles of the New World Order are going to be forged from modern technology. You know, technology over the last 50 years has increased at an exponential rate. It's just been unbelievable. I know some of you in here are probably much older than I am and can remember, I was born in the early 50s, but many of you can remember the days when you know, you had the older Model A, Model T cars, or people still had horses and buggies, and there were no such thing as jet flights or space shuttles or things like that. So we've had a tremendous advancement in technology. Well, where did this technology come from? Do you think we just all of a sudden got very smart? Do you think human beings just, we just got struck with a bit of genius? Or is there something more sinister behind this technology? And I want to get into that because I believe that there is. But let me go back a little bit to what I am doing right now in terms of my own research. It was mentioned that I'm studying forensic dentistry right now, and I guess most of you are familiar with a show called Quincy, and it was about a forensic pathologist. Well, there are different types of forensic studies. There's forensic dentistry, forensic pathology, forensic toxicology, forensic psychiatry, and a host of other subgroups to that particular science. Now basically what I do, or what I'm learning to do right now, is to identify from the remains of individuals a positive identification. Now that's just one thing that a forensic dentist does. There's a lot of other peripheral things. They act as expert witnesses and just a lot of other things. But just to keep it simple, I'll just go through some examples. Here we have a fairly famous face, Lee Harvey Oswald. Back in 1982 when I was in dental school, this is what got me interested in forensics. My professor, Dr. James Catone, who is the head of forensic sciences at the University of Texas Dental School, was commissioned to exhume Lee Harvey Oswald's body to find out if indeed that was the individual who was buried there, because there was a lot of controversy whether or not Lee Harvey Oswald was actually buried in that spot. So I was on the student research team, and I did a lot of research, and that kind of got me interested a little bit in this thing they label paranoids as being fascinated with this thing called conspiracy theory. But I had to read up and study on the assassination of JFK, the Warren Commission report, the 1978 House Select Commission's study of the restudy of the assassination of JFK, which they came to a totally different conclusion. They did finally admit that there was a conspiracy. But anyway, we did exhume his body, and lo and behold, all the evidence did suggest that it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Here we have another very recognizable couple, Bill and Hillary Clinton. No, actually, this is Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun. There's it's a lot of similarities, but anyway, there was a lot of controversy about what happened to these two individuals. Supposedly they were down in their bunker and they were burned. They took cyanide, and the remains were exhumed and examined, and it was determined, or inconclusively determined, that indeed Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler did commit suicide and did die with the fall of Berlin. They are not frozen someplace down in Argentina like some people think they may be. Here's a practical example of something I might be doing. Here we have a bite mark in a thigh, and what we would do is we would actually take an impression or a mold of the alleged perpetrator's mouth and see if that matches with the bite mark, and you can see down here that you almost have a perfect match. So that's pretty conclusive evidence that you do have a positive identification. And over here is just another example of a bite mark, and this uses it's a different technique, radiation, actually an X-ray, and then radioactive illumination to outline the bite marks. Very interesting thing that I'm working on right now, or hope to work on in the future, is this skull up here. This is the remains of David Koresh. Now, about a month and a half ago, I attended a 3-day seminar